This is going to be a brief presentation on the concept of duality. And after I talk about duality as a concept in general, laying the groundwork for it, I'm going to talk about how it relates to the lecture that we're studying this month, Patrick Lecture 181, which has the title, The Meaning of the Human Struggle, which is very dramatic, very big. So first we'll do an overview. I get a little better every year at saying things with fewer words. So it's useful for me to go back and do this again so that I get briefer and briefer and perhaps more concise. Duality is an illusion. There isn't any duality. If you think in terms of, now here's my joke. I always joke about this. A lot of the language that we use is all or nothing. Even in the guide lectures, the guide will use language that translates to do this or else, or this is the only way, or the best way. And yet duality in terms of division does not exist. However, you can shine a flashlight, a spotlight here and there. And when you do that, you want to focus on what you're highlighting. And that's where our language allows us to name that. And the trick is to remember that you're still in unity. Now, that's a grandiose concept, but there's a problem. And that is that Earth and or the material universe, I'm just going to talk about Earth, but this could extend to everything we see and touch or send rockets to. Earth was designed to fool us. Earth was designed to appear dualistic. Hard, soft, it's there, it's not there, I see it, I don't see it, it shines, it doesn't shine. Every single aspect of our lives can be seen and interpreted dualistically, as if there's one truth and not more than that. The guide says that this is a sphere of duality, and therefore any being that comes here. Now, once again, I'm going to focus on Earth. I don't know what the Venusians do or the Martians or the moon creatures. I don't know. So I can only talk about this planet. Any conscience, any consciousness that comes here is part of a tribe, even if that tribe is temporarily created. And I'm finding that the easier word to use is cohort. Some of us know that word from university or high school, where you temporarily form a group that's studying something, and that's your cohort, and you're all kind of in the same degree of education or degree of understanding or in the same general work of study. The entire planet, every consciousness involved with this planet wants to learn about duality. So when the guide says this is a sphere of duality, I find it useful to flesh that out. What does that mean? Does that mean that foxes are behaving dualistically? Yes, because they're on the earth and their feet are either on the ground or off the ground. They're either hungry or not hungry. They're either alive or dead. Are rocks dealing with duality? Yes. Either they witness something or they're hidden from view. Now, I could go on, but I'm hoping you just get the idea. So the guide says, this Patrick lectures say, that this is a sphere of duality. Now I'm going to talk only about human beings because it just gets too complicated to include everybody. So blessings upon all the animal, mineral, and plant life on the planet. Let's talk about people. We are physiologically and psychologically wired to believe our senses and the feedback we get Our minds are designed to figure things out. That's what the mind does. And here's an example. If you think about what happened yesterday, you will likely remember one or two nice things, but you'll probably searingly remember the spoon you dropped or the tea you spilled or the unkind word that you heard. The mind is not there as an arbitrary recorder of history. It's there to help us get through the following day. And therefore, it has a task. And that task is to remember what not to do. So it has a bias. It has a bias on what do I not do so that I can do better tomorrow, which is great. It's fantastic. We also have all these physiological and biological stuff to help us survive. So the body is going to do 10,000 things a day based on we will live longer if we do this. And the emotions will do things because this will make a more pleasant arrangement. This will make better interpersonal relationships. This will make a stronger society. And the mind is thinking in terms of status, vanity, pride, career. There's a lot of things going on here. All of these are based in duality, everything across the board. So the first thing I'd like to suggest is that when you think about a concept of duality, for instance, you find some concrete examples of what that would mean if everything was basically made of the same substance and we were universally able to contact each other and there was no failure, no success. It's just a matter of being in different places, doing different things. What would that do to your idea of how you navigate through the real world? So that's about duality being an illusion, but the illusion is so strong. Now, recently there's been a new form of virtual reality, and people who go into those have an experience of being so into virtual reality that when they come out, they're almost shocked. They almost can't stand up straight because they really believed they were in that reality. I invite you to consider that we are so deeply into this illusion of duality that we've gotten lost. And that was the design. We were supposed to get lost. Why? Because, once again, referencing the meaning of the human struggle, we are a cohort that needs this particular lesson and then more lessons than that, but centered around dualistic thinking. Everybody needs it, so everybody needs to believe the same kind of lies. And as we believe these kinds of lies, we will get into certain thought patterns, and the thought patterns will lead us down the road where we will manifest what we already believe. So in other words, psychology argues whether a human being is a tabula rasa, blank slate, or not. Patrick doesn't argue that. You're not a blank slate. You are a being, you are a spiritual being, and you have created a section of your being that is going to come into this incarnation. I am not my entire self. My entire self would not fit into this bag of skin, but a little bit of it will. And the little bit that was put into this bag of skin was put there with both positive and negative intent and a life task, so that I would enact things in a probable certain way through my childhood, where I'm on instinct and just doing what I think I need to do. And then over the years, become more aware of what I interpreted correctly and what I interpreted wrong. So in the lecture section that we looked at before we began this meeting, the guide says that consciousness includes subconscious and active consciousness. There will always be subconscious. There's nothing you can do about it. When people become frightened of the subconscious, I remind them that, once again, get a concrete example going. In the body, there are quite a few systems that don't need your input. In fact, you would mess them up if you had to turn them on and turn them off and adjust them. Body doesn't need any help from you. It knows exactly how to pump blood, and it knows, I don't want to get into details, you can imagine. So whatever you know about the body, think of it that way. The body knows what to do. We don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to tell our heart to beat. We don't have to tell ourselves to blink. Now, things do go wrong, and then we have to address that. But once they're not going wrong using that language, then they'll flow because they're in alignment with the purpose of the body. If we take that example and we look at conscious subconscious beliefs, it's the same thing. Our conscious and subconscious beliefs that are aligned with spiritual law, clean, will flow. They'll work wonderfully well. But we've also brought some subconscious and or conscious false beliefs. Now, the term I use is false, it comes from the lectures, false beliefs, misconceptions, and distortions. And in my literature, after I explain that, I revert to FBMDs because it's hard to spell out. We bring in a false belief, misconception, or distortion that we are holding on to. And this holding is like holding germs in our eye. And when we hold germs in our eye, the eye gets irritated and red. And if we don't do something about it, the eye gets pussy, et cetera, et cetera. And it has to be dealt with. And once we deal with it, if we don't get the cause out, we might get relief for a while and then it comes back. So we may have to go through several cleansings or healings or addressing it before we finally figure out the cause, address it, and then the eye works correctly from that point on. Once again, I'm being simplistic because there's so many iterations of human experience. But in every human being, there are parts that work just fine. No matter how many difficulties you have, some part of you works. Okay, it has to operate for you to be alive. So when we bring these things in, we also bring in our positive intent, our love, wisdom, and courage in various mixtures. And our task, the meaning of the human struggle, is that we can rely on these positive things. They will support and sustain us. And we are meant to manifest those false currents, those false beliefs, those misunderstandings that we conveniently hold on to, or distortions that we like about how the spiritual system is supposed to work. We're supposed to manifest those, and we do. And it, plural or singular, it is those, right? It is those false beliefs, misconceptions, or distortions that create our problems in life. And then we're supposed to figure it out. So again, just like an infection in your eye or a mistake in your factual judgment where you believe something is true and it's not, it's going to get you in trouble in some areas, but not others. So if you think that North and South America are reversed, nobody may notice that for a while, but one day you're going to open your mouth in a crowd and be laughed at, or point to a map, or make a mistake, and it's going to come to the surface. And you're going to feel like the world's biggest idiot if it's easy to rectify. The things that are easy to rectify are easy because you're not resisting them. It wasn't a deliberate attempt to deceive or dissuade. It was an honest mistake. When corrected, you fix it. You may have to rememorize things for a while. You may have to work at memorizing. Nope, it's not like that. But it's not that hard to fix. The ones that are sticky, the ones that take a long time, the ones that are persistent, are when they are the result of something we are actively holding on to. Now, again, when I work with people, the parts of you that work well, have a great time, talk to your friends, be with your families, earn your money, excel in your career. Pathwork is only designed to help you in the stuck places until you get unstuck. It's not a lifetime sentence. It's a support system for working through issues. So we come in with positive intent and we come in with negative intent. We also have an inner lie detector, meaning there's some part of us that knows. And I want to explain this because it has a little bit to do with duality. Most kids know that being mean and nasty is not a fun or great thing to do. Most kids are not mean and nasty unless they've been frustrated and upset and thwarted, and it's a venting for them to come out with meanness and nastiness. It gets attention, it makes other people listen to them, or it forces people to do their bidding, and they were frustrated because they couldn't get their way enough in other ways. So we have the positive intent and we have the negative intent. We know. Even kids know. So I remember that when my granddaughter was of the age where she envisioned lying. Now, there's a movie, I'm a movie buff, so I mention them a lot. There's a movie called The Invention of Lying, and there's a lovely scene where he's in trouble and he needs to find a way out. And the person says, I don't have the information, just tell me and I'll believe you. And it's almost like you can see the wheels turning in his head. And he says, it's about money. And he doesn't have enough money for what he needs. So he simply says the amount he needs. And she says, fine, and gives him the money. And that aha moment, that I can get anything I want if I lie, is a childhood development stage. All kids learn to lie. And then how they're received in that will reflect whether they hide that capacity and use it for personal gain, or whether they realize it's not conducive to getting along with their parents and their siblings and the other kids, and they are willing to modify it. However, all adults tell white lies, so we never give it up completely, but we learn the impact of it. But I'm talking about that first moment where a kid lies and gets something for nothing, that gets something they're not supposed to get. You can see the wheels turning where they're saying, wow, I have the power to recreate reality and get what I want. But you can also sense that they know that that's probably not a good idea, or they know that that violates something. They don't have the verbiage for that, but there's an inner knowing. Now, by the time we get to be adults, the layer upon layer upon layer is so complicated that it is hard to find these things. So I go back to examples of early child development to point out that kids don't lie for no reason. They usually have a reason to lie, and they have a reason to lie chronically. And that chronicle lying, for instance, is based upon, I can't get my way through honesty, so I'll get it some other way. And when I spoke about what we bring in, what would be brought in at that, what would relate to that is if we brought in a need to have our way, and the minute we're thwarted, that need explodes, it vents, it gets bigger and more forceful and leads us into other activities. And that's an example where we've got a negative current, and there are areas in each of us where it makes a nest, makes a home, and acts out. So that's the lie detector. The lie detector is based on an inner knowing. Pathwork spends a lot of time trying to help people be able to sense some degree of that inner knowing. You won't ever know the entire world of spirit. You're in a limited mind, limited consciousness, but you can have a sense of it, and you already have it. So it's a matter of listening to yourself, and to do that, you have to be quiet, and you may have to notice currents. So we talk a lot about forcing currents and agendas and false needs and guilts and all these currents that create turbulence so that we lose track of what our inner sense is. So the purpose of the human struggle is to recognize all this to some degree. Now, each incarnation has I'm going to use the word narrow task. You don't have to, you're not intended to. The plan does not say, in path work, I know that this disagrees with some religious training, but I teach path work. You don't have to do this in one lifetime. Now, whether it's another human lifetime, or we toddle off to Venus, or we go to another solar system, I have no idea, or where we came from. But the idea is that for each human lifetime, we have some specific aspects to learn. And these aspects that include negativity tend to create a breadcrumb trail. And that is, for instance, where Patrick Lecture 28 on daily review comes in. Patrick Lecture 28 is a way to notice the breadcrumbs, notice the patterns, because it's very hard to figure out every single thing we've done that isn't necessarily perfectly aligned. You don't have to do that. But by looking at our patterns, you may be able to find a central theme in your life where you're not aligned with what you know, where there's something acting out, something forceful, something that's pulling you or pushing you into things that get you in trouble. So number one, there's a current going on there. And secondly, any negativity that you hold, including negative beliefs, and false beliefs are negative because they're not true. Misconceptions are negative because they're not correct. And distortions are negative because you've skewed things. Distortions are a little bit more tricky. Anything that you're holding that is not true is going to create turbulence. It's going to create difficulties. And if you don't address it, eventually it will create pain, whether for you or someone else. It can't do anything but. Now, again, think of your body. Think in terms of, if you pay attention to your body and you give it what it needs, it won't scream. It won't hurt. It won't say, ow, do this for me. But if your body says, I'm leaning on my elbow. If your body says, please move your elbow, I'm starting to ache, and you basically say, no, I like it this way, we're going to stay here. Things happen in the structure. The blood doesn't flow as well. The nerves maybe get pinched. The muscles don't get what they need. The ache starts. The body needs to move. And it will begin to ache or throb so that we are compelled to move. Most of us don't argue with it at that level. But my invitation is to look at the banal instances of where we are encouraged to move, shift, change, because what we're doing is not conducive, it's not constructive. And that's how most of life can flow, except where we're holding. So there's an inner hanging on to some things, and that's our issue. What I'm suggesting is we're not hanging on to everything in an individual incarnation. We're hanging on to a few things that may be able to be verbalized as a theme. It's nice to have a theme, but not necessary. You can feel it if you can't verbalize it. So what stands in our way of having all that we want? Well, number one, we're not supposed to have all that we want. People have a concept that life is here to be pleasurable and free of difficulty. That's not the purpose on a spiritual level of human life, according to Pathwork. We've come here to enjoy and learn. So what gets in the way, what causes problems? Negative intent, resistance, and the illusion that our strategies for avoiding discomfort or pain are working. So if you come up with a strategy for, I can do this because I can do it this way, coping strategy, it'll work for a while, and that's actually dangerous. That's actually a problem because it works only for a while. And while it's working, you become more and more confident this is a good way to do it. So think of it this way. Once again, trying to use silly examples. If I have an urge for money and I notice that banks are easy to rob, and I say, I wonder if I could rob a bank. And I rob a bank and I get away with it. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to get excited by this capacity to gain latitude, finances, luxuries, ease. But of course, that runs out and our need always increases. And I'm going to keep robbing banks. I'll keep robbing banks until I get caught or until the stress of robbing banks ruins my pleasure. So what I did was I thought about this when I started Pathwork. And I thought, well, why don't I rob banks? And so I imagined being, I use this as an example, but any criminal activity. Well, why don't I do that? What would prevent me? I'm smart enough, I could get away with it. But if you think about it realistically instead of fantasy, you may be able to get away with it for 5 or 10 years. You might be able to get away with it for 10 or 20 years. But there is a quality of looking over your shoulder that it may not be in your consciousness, but you have to learn to live a certain way because you can't get caught by certain authorities. So you're hiding something, and your life begins to revolve around what you're hiding. It's subtle. Some people say that's a good trade-off. I accept that trade-off until they get caught, until the consequences hit. What I am suggesting is even in this lifetime, if those consequences never land, and please let me be a little silly about this because I do not know the spirit world, but from the description in the lectures, there is, after a given lifetime, a period of debriefing where you review what has gone on in the life so that you can consider what the next step of your development will be. What's the next lesson to learn, or do you need to come back and repeat? Which is not a failure, it's just sometimes you have to come back and repeat. You may not fully realize the consequences of your negativity until you move into the world of spirit where you can't hide anything. So the guide is always saying that in the spirit world, everything's on the table. Imagine, if you would, an analogy on earth would be that we all walk around naked so we can't hide. And if our negativity showed up in skin diseases, we wouldn't be able to hide them. But in the real world on the planet, we can hide them. We can suck in, we can wear tight pants, we can do a lot of things to mask and imitate and appear to be something that we're not. That doesn't work in the world of spirit. And that's why we're here. We're here to experience the duality of having to hide, of having to cover up, of having to worry and be anxious, fear of failure, fear of lack of love, fear of our own cowardice. We're here to see that. So that's an overview of duality. Now I'm going to add a few things because we're going to have a group discussion after this. And we've decided to use week 3 of Pathwork Lecture 181, The Meaning of the Human Struggle, as a syllabus. And that lecture, we're using week 3 because it talks about duality. But the first thing it talks about is the power of creative substance. And according to the guide, consciousness comes first. Consciousness is the beginning. Creative substance follows. Now, in human language, the word follow means there's a gap. First, there's consciousness, then there's creative substance that flows in. In Patrick Lecture 112, the guide basically says there is no time in the world of spirit. Time is also a factor in this world of duality. We see time as real, whereas in spirit, everything exists, past, present, and future exists at the same time. So consciousness happens and creative substance happens instantaneously, immediately. There's no real gap there. It flows and fills in what the consciousness visualizes. I mentioned a lot of lectures in case you want to go off on specific topics, not that you have to, but you might want to. Patrick Lecture 210 is on visualization. And in that lecture, the guide says you have to visualize something before you can inhabit it. You don't just wander around creating. On some level of your being, you visualize the possibility. And then you begin to fill that in. This is another version of that, where your consciousness goes out and your creative substance follows. And the creative substance manifests immediately. But just because it manifests in this energetic spiritual reality, dimension that we don't fully see or understand, we can't capture it, we can't touch it. Just because this thing manifests doesn't mean it's going to show results. And that's where our human perception says it didn't work. Later in this lecture, the guide talks about prayer. He says people pray for things and they think if it doesn't happen for them, what they wish for is not given to them, that they were not heard. All prayers are heard. The answer may be no. The answer may be yes, and there is groundwork to be done. In other words, a prayer is a form of consciousness. And here's how I see it. Usually I do the comedy version. If I visualize who I could be and I pray to get there, number one, I'm visualizing it, which means I have some clue, and the creative substance follows and inhabits that, and things happen. Now, it may take a while for earthly things to move around, opportunities to open up. I may need to build skills and experiences that I didn't realize I needed to be that kind of person. So what I'm trying to explain is how just because it doesn't happen doesn't mean it's not in motion. But people want instant gratification, they want feedback, or, well, that didn't work, we'll do something else. When I talk about the inner lie detector, it's also a place where you are sure that something is important and needs to be done, and you stay the course. And this is where commitment enters into this. Commitment is how we agree to stay put in a certain course of study or a certain arena long enough for this to grow. Another silly, banal example is if you plant seeds and you dig them up every 3 days to see if they're growing, they're not going to grow. So for instance, I believe acorns take years to grow. You plant it and you just don't expect a garden of oak trees the next week. You just don't, or the next year. So it helps to have awareness that this is a long-term, that some things are a long-term plan. It helps to understand the mechanism of things so that you're not afraid that something isn't working, that you didn't do it right. And then you can sit with the knowing, I have done everything I can. If I have more awareness that more needs to be done, I will do it. And I will work on the understanding so that when I have awareness, I will be able to activate my forces and activate the support I need to get what I want to do. So that's where all this fits together with creative substance. There's a lot more to duality, but I'm going to pause it on that and go back to our group discussion. And for the the intention is to mount this on YouTube. So for those who are listening there, I hope this gives you something to work with. And thanks for listening.